Hi, I'm Patrick. That's Steven, E-Rock, and Tiffany. Together, we're Just Got Played, and we're going to delve into worker placement for Labor Day. Join us for worker placement on Just Got Played.
Just Got Played's Labor Day Special. 8 great worker placement games in no particular order.
Steven, would you like to tell us a little bit about what we're getting ready to talk about?
Yeah, so we decided to talk about this for Labor Day. Actually, most countries around the world have some version of Labor Day. Most of them actually celebrate it on May 1st, which is interesting. But here in the United States, it's always the first Monday in September. And Labor Day is about celebrating the worker. And coincidentally, in board games, a very popular mechanism that we have is worker placement, which also celebrates the worker. Now, worker placement is interesting because there is no universal definition of what is and is not worker placement. But in general, you have a worker or a pool. You have a pool of workers that you spend over the course of a round to trigger some actions. Usually that means blocking other people from taking those actions. Sometimes it means that it makes it more expensive for other people to do those actions. Sometimes people have to bump you off those actions and give you a benefit. So there's some different interactions there. And then usually you either have to sort of pass when you're out of workers and wait for the round to end, or you pass a turn to take your workers back. And that's just the general broad strokes of worker placement. There are a lot of different takes on that. In fact, you're going to see several of those while we talk today about 8 great worker placement games. So, all right, let's get started. So, E-Rock, why don't you tell us about was this your number one worker placement game?
This is my number one worker placement game.
All right.
Absolutely. And that is Champions of Midgard. This is kind of a fancy special box to hold all the expansions and everything in that, so it doesn't actually have the name on it or anything. Let me see if I can get one of them. Hey,
Very nice.
Champions of Midgard. Yes, this is my number one worker placement game. I think it's fantastic. It's both traditional and standard worker placement, and then it just has another half of the game that just throws that all out the window and does something different. So the worker placement part is very simple. You put your workers out. I'm going to get some food here. I'm going to get a pikeman here. I'm going to get an axeman here. But you use these in battle against like Norse enemies, like Drower and trolls and things like that. And unlike other worker placement games where these would just be resources, where you just turn them in and get the thing, you actually use these to fight, to actually roll the dice and fight the things that you're out there trying to defeat. So that adds another layer to this where it's not just go out and get a thing, get that, trade it in for this thing, trade that in for points. This you're actually rolling the dice and you just never really know. It might be a huge success, it might be a terrible failure. And all these emotions and everybody at the table, they participate in this also. It's just a super, super fun game to play. And like I said, not just for you, but for everybody else, because everybody watching is watching these battles happen and they're rooting for you, rooting against you, who knows? But either way, it's exciting. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. This is, I also like this game a lot. And a lot of worker placement games are just sort of about build your engine, trigger your engine, but this is just different, right? There's combat and you showed your box that has the expansions. I recommend always playing with the Valhalla expansion. I mean, I play with all the expansions,
Absolutely.
But yeah, the Valhalla one I think is the best. So yeah, great pick.
Yeah, it's got an original take on worker placement because you have that third aspect of the game, right? Where you're building up your stuff, but it's a means to an end. You're actually building up your stuff so you can fight the monsters, and that's really what gives you the victory point. So that it's a very cool thing and something that you don't see very often at all.
All right. So, Tiffany, why don't you tell us about your favorite worker placement game?
All right, so my very favorite worker placement, which I think is like number 2 on my list of games of all time, is Underwater Cities. I love this game. This is by Vladimir Suchy, as you can see. who's made a lot of other wonderful games. But in Underwater Cities, you are a scientist, and you've been tasked with trying to figure out how to make the water areas of our planet habitable for humans, because we are overpopulating our what's available of our Earth. And so the whole game, you're researching technologies and you're trying to build up your underwater city. Maybe it's a small underwater city with not many branches, but you've got this one really kick-ass place with all these research facilities, or maybe you're going to branch out, and they kind of give you a lot of different paths to victory. You've got a lot of different options, which I think is amazing. But it's a really interesting game. The way that they do worker placement is there are these actions that are around the outside of the board, and you place your worker there. But when you place your worker there, you also have to pair it with a card from your hand. And if the color of the card matches the color of the space that you went, you get like a bonus action from the card. If it doesn't match, it's not a big deal. You just miss out on that part of the game. So you really don't want to do that. But sometimes you're in a situation where you're like, I really have to build this turn, like come hell or high water. So I don't care if I have to lose a card. Maybe you've got one that you're not going to use anyways. But it's really this like intricate dance of worker placement and hand management and all of the wonderful things that I love in a game. Now, I will tell you, this is a long game. The box says 35 to 40 minutes per player. I know some reviews that I watched said 40 minutes per player. I feel like when I play, it's probably closer to like 50 or 55 minutes per player. It's a long game, but man, it burns so good. It's so good.
Wow, I have not played that game, but you've sold me. So the next time I have 4, 5, 6 hours, maybe we could play it.
I just want to chime in here. We play this fairly often for us. I love this as a 2-player game. I agree, it's pretty long, and especially if you got a 3rd or 4th player who hasn't played before, now you got a whole teach and learn and all of that thing going on at the same time. It's quite long with 4, but this is fantastic with 2. This is one of my top 2-player games, and Babe and I play all the time.
It's because it's he's like, what do you want to play? And I'm like, Underwater Cities? And he's like, we don't have 6 hours. It's not that bad.
It sounds great. I've never played it either, so we should make a play date.
We're going to have to play.
Play date, woo!
I'm in.
All right. Well, a much shorter game is my number 1 favorite worker placement game. So I actually have here Key to the City London, which is in the Key series of games. But this is the sort of little lesser known brother to the most famous and highly regarded game in the Key series, which is Keyflower. So that's what I'm going to talk about here for my favorite worker placement game. So Keyflower is interesting. You're getting tiles to build a little village, and on those tiles you're generating resources, you're using them to score points. There's a lot of different types of workers designated by their color. And in worker placement games there's always this sort of tension, like, oh, I need to get to that space before somebody else gets to the space and blocks me out of that space. Well, so in Keyflower, there's this sort of added element, because while you are doing your worker placement to activate these tiles, because you put the workers on the different tiles, you're also running an auction to get new tiles, and you do it at the same time. So you've got that decision like, ooh, do I want to jump out and start bidding on something, or do I need to activate a tile now? And the reason it's important to jump out and bid on something before somebody else starts bidding on it is the color of the worker that you use, whether it's red, yellow, blue, or green, determines the sort of color of worker that has to be used to bid on it that round. So, if you have a bunch of blues, you can just jump out with a few blues, and maybe other people don't have them, and now you've sort of locked into getting that. So that's an interesting, the auction is this tension, like, should I be doing the worker placement part or the auction part? And then the other interesting spin that this has on worker placement is that you can activate tiles in your own private area, but you can activate tiles in other people's areas as well. And you can activate the tiles that are being auctioned off. And the interesting mechanism there is whoever owns the tile at the end of the round gets those workers to use in the next round. So you want to use your own stuff if you can, but it doesn't prevent you from using other people's stuff. And when you use those spaces, they become more expensive for other people to use. So if I put one blue worker on there, not only have I locked that space into being used by blue workers, but now the next person has to use 2 or 3. Sometimes you'll see somebody just jump out and be like, well, I've got 2 blue workers and I don't know what I would do with the other one, so I'll just bid 2 on this one. So now the next person has to do 3, right? They're just, you're just messing with your opponent. And so a lot of things that I've not seen in a lot of other worker placement games, and I just love the tension here. And so yeah, that's my number one, Keyflower.
That sounds awesome. I have to say, I've never played that, but I find even though that tension in games makes me so stressed out, it's always those games where I'm most tense that afterwards I'm like, woo, that was good. Like, let's do it again. So my interest is definitely piqued.
Yeah.
I get sweaty when I get nervous.
That probably makes it awkward.
That's why I love playing cash poker with you, man.
Yeah.
You probably don't play many of those like live action roll, like where you have to roll, escape the dungeon. There's
I hate
a
those.
theme park building one where you have to roll fast.
Galaxy Trucker, you have to build your ship.
Yeah,
real
like
I
fast.
stuff
still
like
play
that.
them. I just get sweaty.
Oh, you just make everybody else uncomfortable with your pit stains.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh, sounds good. So yeah, Keyflower, most popular in the Key series. So speaking of another series of worker placement games, Patrick, what do you got for us?
I have Manhattan Project 2 Minutes to Midnight. Just like Steven said, there's several different games in the Manhattan Project series. The first one's a very simple worker placement game, and you're all racing to get yellow cake to build nuclear weapons. This game is my favorite because it takes a lot of those easy to play elements and it adds so much. Now, this is also a long game. I would say 2 hours is not an uncommon amount of time to play this for 4 players. But during the course of the game, you can upgrade your individual your workers. So, like, you send your workers to military to get trained, or you send your workers to the university to become educated, and you upgrade the workers. You can build buildings. You upgrade your technology based on how much research you have, so you can upgrade your ability to make better buildings. It is absolutely rich and deep and fantastic. And that doesn't even cover everything. The next part is it's extraordinarily player interactive. So you're building nuclear subs or nuclear bombers, and I can kind of stick them in Steven's homeworld, or in his coastal waters, and he'll lose points if I put that nuclear sub in his water. And he can eliminate them, but he has to randomly eliminate them. Some are decoys, some are subs. There's just so much interaction, and I wouldn't say take that, but you definitely have an ability to hinder another player by your focus of gameplay way more than any other worker placement game that I've ever played.
Wow, that's cool. You mentioned that getting your workers trained, that's another interesting spin on worker placement. I think the original, the Manhattan Project, was the first game that I saw that had specialized workers.
Yep.
So
this one takes that to the next level, to where you're not just making construction workers, you're making generals, and there's regular soldiers and there's generals. It's just really cool.
Oh, wow. That's great. Yeah. So I really like the Manhattan Project and the Manhattan Project Energy Empire. So yeah, I'll have to check out Minutes to Midnight as well.
This game has one of those names that gets on my nerves. It's almost like Camel Cup or Camel Up. Like, is this Manhattan Project 2 Minutes to Midnight, or is it Manhattan Project 2 Minutes to Midnight?
I think that's the 2 Minutes to Midnight referencing the nuclear doomsday clock.
And the song by Iron Maiden.
And it's also Manhattan Project 2, so it's a double entendre.
Was it the second game? It wasn't the third or fourth game? Because there's
It's
the chain
considered-
reaction card game too or something, right?
Yeah, but it's considered Manhattan Project and then Manhattan Project 2.
Okay, cool.
Anyway,
Minutes to
the nice
Midnight.
thing is you don't actually attack anybody, but you keep threatening people, hence the Minutes to Midnight. It's very thematic. And the components on all those Manhattan Project games are fantastic.
I am a sucker for a game with good components.
And if it doesn't
For sure.
have them, we'll buy them.
Well,
Well, this
or make them.
this whole
Or
series
make them.
this whole series is coming back under a new publisher soon. So this whole series will be available. The whole Manhattan Project
interesting.
series will be available
Interesting.
soon. I think
All re-releases?
it's from Grail Games. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The new ones. Anyway. All right. So, Eric, there was another game that ranked very highly on both terrific pace lists.
Indeed.
So why don't you tell us about that?
Sure. Somehow we both ended up with this as our number 2 worker placement game, and that is Lorenzo Il Magnifico. We love this game. Quite frankly, it's a little bit complicated and it's a little bit obtuse, but once you really start to get a hang of what's going on there, I think it's incredibly deep and rich in ways that most other games that we play aren't. Just to give you the kind of the sales pitch for it. So the deal with this one is that you roll these dice at the beginning of the round, and they're a color. Like you have an orange dice, you have a black dice, you have a white dice. Now each of us also has, like, we'll call it a pawn of that color. So we're all using the same numbers that were rolled for that die. So if the orange die is a 5, we all have an orange 5. If the white die is a 1, we all have a white 1. So you got to be able to maneuver these equally, basically, in ways to try to get the cards off this tower to do things like run your countries, or whatever they're called, the lands or whatever, in which case you just get a bunch of stuff, like and they all have limitations on them also. So like to run this set of cards, the first one might require a 3, the second one might require a 5, the third one might require a 1. So depending upon the die that I use to do this, some of them will be triggered. And then, of course, you have this other resource in the game that you can just throw out to add to your pips on your dice so that you can generally always get to where you're going if you worked for it. But that's kind of the way this game goes. Everything is super tight. You need to work for everything. But if you burn, and I mean burn, you can get there. Don't you think, babe?
You eventually get there. It's tight though, and there's absolutely that tension that you feel in every worker placement where you've got your eyes set on this spot because you really need this this room, and you can't get there in time. Or this has the added thing of if anyone goes in that column at all, now you've got an extra fee that you have to pay if you want to go to another level of that column. So it's it's painful, but it's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job of integrating like the day phases and the night phases. So there's different parts of the game, but they all flow together really well. And of course, you're always fighting you have to have enough candles lit, which is I think thematically it's candles for your deity or something, but you're always
Catholic Church, but sure.
Something, yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. I'm not really a church person, so don't let my mom watch this. Oh my God. But you're always chasing that timer of like, you have to have X number of candles lit by the end of the round. And if you don't, you're getting this you're getting exercise from the church, and it's terrible and it's painful.
Absolutely. It's so tight. And then on top of it, yes, the church is always demanding things from you. Like if you don't satisfy the church, it's just going to hamper you for the rest of the game. Like now when you get purple things, you get one less purple thing if you don't satisfy the church. So it's so tight anyway. And then trying to get this last thing on top of it so you don't get penalized. It is so awesome. It's so much fun to play. Well,
I hate when the church gets the purple thing.
Yeah, don't we all?
Indeed. But that's Lorenzo Il Magnifico.
Nice. Well, there is a game that showed up on 3 lists here. There's a couple of them, but I'm going to talk about one of them now. And I think it's a very popular worker placement game. And that is Viticulture. Do a little exercise here. This is a heavy box because I've got a bunch of the Tuscany stuff in here. And I would recommend playing with the Tuscany stuff. So as you can imagine, thematically, you're running a vineyard, but you're trying to score points. And, it's interesting because I talked about Keyflower. Keyflower is played over 4 rounds, spring, summer, fall, and winter. In this game, every turn you go through spring, summer, fall, and winter. So, you're growing grapes, you're planting fields, and then you're harvesting those grapes, and then you're making wine out of them. And you can age your grapes, and you can age your wine, and you're trying to fulfill these delivery orders, and that's how you score a lot of the points. But then there's also these visitors who come, who give you sort of special things you can do to also, get points or to improve your sort of personal vineyard with structures and things. So there's a lot of different stuff going on. Like I said, I recommend playing with Tuscany, which has specialized specialized workers that you pick 2 of them from this pool of different ones that are out there to play with in each game. So that sort of changes things up each game. But what I like about this game that is different than a lot of other games is, so I mentioned the spring, summer, fall, and winter. And so you have your collection of workers, and there's just a subset of actions that you can choose, say, in the spring. And you have to decide, well, these are the ones I'm going to activate, but then I'm going to pass and go into the next season, and you wait for everybody to come into the next season. So you have to save some workers to use in the next season, and then the next season, the next season. So you have to be very forward-looking, like, what am I going to use these workers for? Because unless you have some special workers, you can't go back and do something from a previous season. And it gets sort of complicated, too, because you'll have this grand plan, and I think more than any other worker placement game that I play, this game, I get blocked more from what I wanted to do, right? Maybe it's just because everybody is planting, harvesting, making wine or something, but there's just, why did you do that? Why did you take that space? I need that. What am I going to do now? And in some games that could be super annoying, but for some reason it works. It just works well in this game. And you'd have to be a teetotaler to not have this game on your list. So who didn't have this game on their list? Somebody who doesn't drink, maybe? No? Okay.
Which one of us didn't put us on the list? I'm sure I did.
To be fair, it was on my list. It's just pretty far past 10.
Yeah. No, it was not on Patrick's list.
Crazy people.
Really?
So let's all look at him for a second.
I
This way?
No, to your right.
Which way?
Oh.
I like viticulture.
But
I love viticulture. I think one of the things that makes viticulture so I was going to say, I don't find it quite as punishing when other people go to that space, because one of the neat things about viticulture is you get a papa, and it always makes me go, I love it when you call me Big Papa. And you get to place him. If there's a place that's full, you can still send him there. He doesn't get the bonus, but he can still do it.
That's the grande.
The grande.
Eric always calls it the papa.
You have a mama and a papa you get at the beginning, but that's the grande,
right.
Which you can use.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's actually more of that bonus. Like, because when you're looking at the board, I can't remember getting blocked out of actions too much in this game, but that bonus is huge.
Yeah.
I really want to play 2 yellow cards. I really want to play 2 blue cards. And just losing that bonus action hurts so much. It like destroys your, like, oh, now I have to play 2 guys to get 2 cards? That's ridiculous.
Good luck.
I get blocked out a lot, and when you get blocked out in spring or summer, you're like, gosh, do I want to use my grande this early in the turn? Oh man, so, but yeah, the bonuses, right? The bonuses are great. So getting there first again is really nice.
Worth it.
Yeah, totally.
Which is a reoccurring function of most worker placement games. Getting there first gives you the biggest payoff.
I agree. Philosophically speaking, you really want to try to maneuver yourself into going first into worker placement games, because that really minimizes the chances you're going to get blocked out of that one thing that you absolutely have to do.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention, in viticulture, they have that wake-up track, right? Where you pretty much decide where you're going to go in turn order for the next season. So, that's another interesting twist. All right. So,
Should I go Waterdeep?
Yeah, there's one more game that was on 3 of our lists, and it's the classic evergreen worker placement game. Go ahead, Patrick, take it away.
Lords of Waterdeep. I love this game because I feel like, to run it down very quickly, each of you gets assigned a lord, and that guy has a special goal in mind. Plus, there's quests that are put on the board, and that's how you achieve victory points by getting certain players in certain areas and spending gold to be able to fulfill quests, and that gets you victory points. That's a very, very brief version of how to play the game. But the thing I love about this game the most is because I feel like there's always something I want to do. I don't have as much stress about getting just shut out in comparison to everyone else. That having that special ability or that special goal that no one else knows what it is and I do, that's always something you can be working towards. And those quests, they reset rather quickly. You can actually use one of your worker placements to reset the quests so you can get all new ones. I feel like you're never super stressed out about getting blocked out in Lords of Waterdeep.
You know, I think it's a little bit dependent on who you play with, because you actually build the buildings that you use for a lot of the worker placement during the game. So if people aren't building a lot of buildings, it can be sort of stressful, like I've got workers, but I don't really have anything good to do. Personally, I like to play with the Scoundrels of Skullport, I think it's called, expansion, which has this extra board, extra places to place, and has that cool thing where, like, yeah, it's like there's this neat stuff I want to take, but it gives me corruption, which may be bad at the end of the game if I can't get rid of it. So that's another, interesting twist. But yeah, D&D theme, if you've got a copy that has the upgraded little tiny meeples instead of just colored cubes, that always helps. But yeah, classic game. Again, it's on three of our lists. And
yes, I love this game. Probably TMI, but my first couple of dice towers, I made cards so that I could pass them out to people, so that after I met new people and played games with them, I'd be like, "Will you be my friend? Here's my friend card," and it had like my Facebook info and it had my Instagram on it, and so I on the back of my card on the front I had like my picture so people would remember me, and my contact information on the back I had some of my favorite games are, and Lords of Waterdeep was one of those games because I loved it early on. I loved it. Like I will forever love Lords of Waterdeep because it is a accessible game. It's I don't think too mean, like Patrick was talking about, like there's options for going places. And so when you're playing with a new player, you can always be like, oh, I know they took that spot would have been perfect for you. But if you go to this spot, this will actually do the same thing, but maybe better because this is something he built earlier. And so now you can go there. I just love it. For new players, old players alike, it's a great game, and I'll forever probably put it on my Be My Friend card.
Nice.
I did not get a Be My Friend card.
I didn't either.
You did. Yes. Well, I don't know that you did, Stephen, but I bet you did, Rhett, because I think that's how you found me on Facebook.
No, I think we found each other on Facebook through Cloak and Blaster, which is now back open and ready to serve you in Orlando, Florida. Getting ready to move locations.
Nice. So, Lords of Waterdeep, a lot of people use it as their gateway game for worker placement, right? They want to introduce new people to worker placement. They use Lords of Waterdeep. Everybody has different games that they might suggest for that. But, but we collectively got together and talked about it a little bit, and we decided to make a recommendation other than Lords of Waterdeep or Asking for Troubles. That was the box that I just showed. And so, Tiffany, why don't you tell us a little bit about Stone Age?
Stone Age. So in Stone Age, you are playing a tribe of people, and it's basic. You're gathering wood, you're gathering clay, you're gathering stone, and I think you're gathering gold or some kind of precious metal. And it's really simple. You just take turns putting your guy out on the thing. You don't take the action when you place them. You just place, and then once everybody is placed, then you pull them off. And when you pull them off, you pick the order that you pull them off in, and then you do the action when you pull the guy off. And you're just getting resources, you're feeding your people, you're maybe making more people, and you're buying these cards or tiles at the bottom to get your points. And it's really, it's just digestible, it's accessible. It's it's got a little real leather cup in it so you can roll the dice from, which I think is awesome, but a lot of people may not like that. But I think it's a great gateway game for people who are just getting their feet wet in worker placement and kind of want to get an idea of what it's all about.
Yeah,
Not even just worker placement. It's a great gateway game. Period.
It's yes.
Simple and fun and light and quick and not abrasive. That's a good choice. That was a fantastic choice.
Plus, it's got a second layer to it too. It's not so simple where you just go out and get clay. You roll dice for it, and it's kind of a gambler's mechanism here. Like for instance, to get wood, you roll as many dice as the people that you placed out there, and for any values of 3, not per dice, but added together. So if I rolled a 4 and a 3, I rolled a 7, that's 2 3s, I'll get 2 wood. Clay, you need 4s for. Stone, you need 5s. Gold, you need 6s. So it adds this whole other layer of how many guys do I need to go there to get the 3 things that I need? So it kind of elevates that gateway experience into something that's a little bit more memorable than just a straight up worker placement game, I think.
Yeah, and you talk about adding luck to a game like that, which you don't usually see a lot of luck in a worker placement game, but I wouldn't say this is a lucky game. I would expect an experienced player to mop the floor with new players every time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you weren't listening close enough during the Stone Age section of this, Brian Fiore would absolutely love for you to go back and listen to it again and look for some double entendres, because there was about 30 that was said in there that I just barely controlled.
Someone keep track and post them in the comments.
Turn it into a drinking game.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Please don't post it in the comments.
Feed the algorithm. I don't care what you put in the comments. Feed YouTube. All right. So we've talked about 8 great worker placement games. We all talked about 2 different games. Would you like to know? I asked everybody to send me just a list of their favorite worker placement games. No, real rhyme or reason to it other than that. Would you like to know the other games that we had a crossover on, so that 2 of us?
I would love to know.
I do.
All right. So here's the list in alphabetical order. All right. So Alien Frontiers, which is interesting take that it has dice as your workers. Dinosaur Island, very 80s neon. Jurassic
Very
Park,
80s.
the board game. Dwellings of Eldervale, we recently did a review of that. Go check out our review.
Yeah, you should check it out.
That game is a lot more than just worker placement. There's a lot going on there. Everdell, which
Beautiful.
one of the most overproduced games ever. The Gallerist.
Hey, you can't put Everdell and
Dwellings of Eldervale.
Dwellings of
Right after.
Eldervale
And then call
say Everdell is overproduced.
Okay, one of the most overproduced individual components for a game, because that useless tree thing.
There you go.
All right, which you can buy separately for no reason. I don't know. And then the Gallerist was next, which I have not played. But
I love the Gallerist. That's actually one of the ones, we haven't actually had one of these, but when you were describing the concept of worker placement, this is one of the ones where you get bumped. And when you get bumped, you get a bonus action out of that. So that's really cool. Plus in this one, you hire assistants and you kind of leave them behind in your spot, and they get bumped and you get a bonus. It's pretty nice.
Wow.
Plus it's just super unique. I mean, we have 300 games that are about growing wheat and trading it in for points. And in this one, you're building an art gallery, like with art in it and stuff. It's just super cool.
Yeah, that's I always like when there's like sort of a refreshing theme to go along with something,
Yes,
right?
absolutely,
Yeah, that's cool.
yes.
So next is Manhattan Project Energy Empire, which is my favorite game in the Manhattan Project series. And that is by the same designer of Dwellings of Eldervale, right?
Oh, Luke Laurie.
Is it? I think it is. And Luke Laurie is going to show up again on this list here in a second. But next is Tzolk'in, which has a very interesting mechanism where you have workers that age as the turns go along, because you turn this central gear, which turns all these other gears. And so that's really cool table presence. If you've never seen it, go look at some cool painted wheels that people have done for it.
That game has a lot of legs for me, because when I first saw this, I mean, this is pretty old at this point, but when this first came out, I was like, oh, look at the gears, how they turn. Isn't that cute? But it's a really good game.
Yeah,
We're
it
still
works.
playing Tzolk'in.
Yeah, and last is Whistle Mountain. So that's a co-design
Yay,
from
Whistle
Luke Laurie, and we recently did a review of that one as well. That one's interesting in that it has just the sort of traditional worker placement around the edge of the board, but then the like placement along the scaffolding in the middle is fairly unique.
Yeah, the middle's awesome. You build the play space and then also take part in destroying it. It's really cool.
Yeah. So there you go. That is a list of some other worker placement games you can check out if you're interested in the genre. There are a lot of worker placement games.
There are
a lot of good ones we didn't even talk about. Probably a lot of good ones we haven't even played yet. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
probably.
And unfortunately, a couple of those, I don't think. I mean, I know it's still available, but I don't think Minutes to Midnight is going to be republished, and I don't think Energy Empire is going to be republished, because of the passing of James Mack.
No, that's what I was
Oh.
talking about. Grail Games has taken over the entire thing, and in fact, there was an expansion for Energy Empire that
Oh, really?
they're going to fulfill that Kickstarter that wasn't fulfilled, the Cold War or something expansion. So yeah, that's Grail Games has the license. They're going to publish those games. I don't know if they're going to republish all of them, but they do have that now, and they are working on it. A new
That's a
product.
good point, though, with the availability. Just thinking about the games we've talked about, I don't think any of them are hard to get, right? You should be able to walk into pretty much any friendly local gaming store and find 90% of these games, and the only reason they don't have the other one is because they were sold out right now.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, I'm looking at these, and I think so. I mean, Stone Age is an evergreen. Waterdeep's an evergreen. Viticulture is as well. I don't know about El Magnifico, but I've seen it around a lot.
That's true. That's
Midgard
probably
is
on the
always in print. Keyflower.
farther end of that, but I've seen it in every store I've been in.
Yeah, Keyflower. And Underwater Cities, I've seen a lot. I don't know if it's hard to get. It's sort of expensive, if I remember properly.
But for
maybe.
sure, you can go out and go 4 or 5 of these titles easy.
Yeah. So go do that. Go buy some
Yeah,
games.
go buy some games.
Go play
It's
some
Labor Day,
games.
for Christ's sakes.
It's Labor Day. There's probably a sale on. You're not working, or you shouldn't be working, or well, I guess you're definitely not working if you're watching this video.
I'm not working.
Hopefully you're getting paid. I'm Patrick. That's Tiffany, Steven, and E-Rock. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and thank you guys for participating in the show. I love doing this with you guys, and I hope we continue to do it from now until forever. And if you enjoyed what you just saw, hit the subscribe button, hit like, put something in the messages about, Steven's shirt. I don't know. Something like that. Thank you very much for watching. Just Got Played.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Bye.